All right, I want to welcome back our panel right now, our White House correspondent, Elmer Robinson, hopefully standing by laughing right now in Washington right now. That was, by the way, this is a day after Joe Biden's dog, Major, bit a member of the National Park Service on Tuesday. So, yeah.
I actually thought when you said you were bringing up a text that I sent you, I thought you were bringing up the one about the First Lady, Jill Biden, and where she had a little slip that people are paralleling to the Veep show, where she tried to say something in Spanish and she said something completely different.
Right. She said you are a jelly donut, or I am a jelly donut, something like that. I thought, yeah, I did see that yesterday. The whole panel's back with us. Yeah.
I don't know.
I think we do have the sound. We can grab that at some point. But I did see that. I got that from Steve Cortez as well. He sent that around.
Oh my gosh, Steve's tweet was hilarious.
The problem is I don't speak Spanish, so I saw it and I was like, ha ha ha.
I don't either. I was relying on Steve.
Yeah, yeah. Well, panel, welcome back in. I just wanted to ask you guys a question. We were just talking about this actually during the commercial break. So now more and more states 150 million Americans have had at least one dose of this coronavirus vaccine. The numbers that's the most in the world by far. We've got just over 300 million people in America. So we're getting there. We're getting closer to the point where we can all take off the masks. But does anybody else kind of ebb and flow? Because I'm going to be eligible in Connecticut, I think on Friday, tomorrow. And some days I'm like, yes, I'm absolutely getting the vaccine. And some days I question it sometimes. I just want to know if anybody else is sort of goes through that roller coaster ride sometimes. Rick, we'll start with you. Yeah. Donna, go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I looked at a lot of the data with the polio vaccine, when it first came out. And when it initially came out, there were a lot of issues with it. And it just kind of makes you want to wait and see if there are other issues that are going to rise from it. So far, it looks pretty good. Technology, science, all that is obviously developed over the years. So I think it puts us in a much better standing. And I think at the end of the day, if we move toward this idea of everybody getting vaccinated and it gets us to live normal lives again, then that's a great motivator to be able to do that. Because I certainly don't think that we want to start then segmenting people who have gotten the vaccine and who haven't, and rewarding those that have and punishing those that do not have it yet. So there's a lot of, there's still a lot of reservations, I think, with a lot of people about whether and how effective it is right now.
Well, you make a good, and there's a lot of, a Rasmussen poll says that 40% of conservative voters still question whether or not they'll get a vaccine. I should say, just because the position that I'm in, I do plan on getting it. But I question it sometimes, and now that my number's up, I'm like, I wonder if it's the best thing to do. I want to get back to the old normal, not the new normal. I think vaccine passports are ridiculous. I imagine going to the movies with my kids, and what if I forget my phone, which happens to me all the time, and I don't have my little passport? Do I not get to go see Frozen 3 in theaters? Like, does that happen? Donna, go ahead.
Yeah, we're having a little bit of issue here in trying to get our vaccination, and that's because of the state debacle here. But, I think that we should thank President Trump that we have a vaccine and give him the credit that we're moving as fast as we can. So I just want to make sure that is acknowledged, that the fact that we even have a vaccine and people are able to be vaccinated at this rate is because of the accomplishments of our last president.
Such a good point. I think that Donald Trump's legacy will be tied up in the vaccines, and Joe Biden's could be vaccine passports. Let me play a soundbite from Rochelle Walensky, our new CDC director, on deaths in 2020. Some of these numbers might surprise you. Take a listen.
In 2020, about 3.3 million deaths occurred in the United States overall. This represents a 16% increase in deaths from 2019. COVID ranked as the third leading cause of underlying cause of death after heart disease and cancer, with approximately 378,000 COVID-19 deaths, accounting for roughly 11% of all deaths in the United States in 2020.
You guys have talked about this over at the Federalist. By the way, when it comes to Americans dying, I think you need to be precise. She's not accurate. It's not 16%. In fact, it's just over 15%, but she's rounding up. I think you should be precise with that. That's somewhere where you should be accurate. I don't know what you think, but it also surprised me that COVID was third on that list behind cancer and heart disease as well.
Yeah, and look, I think there's also just a question of classification of deaths, which, you're a conspiracy theorist to bring it up, but there are plenty of people who had underlying conditions, serious conditions, right, and perhaps the coronavirus accentuated how devastating those conditions were. But there were plenty of people who died with coronavirus, not from coronavirus. And of course, many of these deaths were preventable, like if you didn't follow a policy of putting the elderly in nursing homes, cramming them together when they had the coronavirus in the first place. I do think it's worth emphasizing the fact that it is unprecedented for there to have been a rollout of a vaccine in this period of time. I think it's unimaginable under a Democrat president that you would have had the tearing down of the red tape that took place over the last year to get into this position, which all of the scientists, public health experts told us would be impossible, that would never be here. You know, to your point about the question of the effectiveness of the vaccines, I have no reason to question their effectiveness, but it's curious when you have those public health officials saying, well, you still need to mask even after you're vaccinated. Are they just admitting that they really don't know ultimately what the consequences are? That's okay. You should, as a scientist, admit
Benjamin,
that you don't know.
That's very obvious. They don't know. They don't know. They haven't known for 13 months. And it's at this point, I think it's largely about control. They've really enjoyed the control. It's like we live in a place with a king and a queen. They love the control. And in this case, the king his name's Tony Fauci. We don't have a lot of time left in this panel. It's something I just wanted to get to quickly. I don't know if anybody was following the Tiger Woods situation out in Los Angeles, but Tiger Woods, this guy's such an interesting American story. Yesterday, late in the day, it came out that the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Office says that detectives now know what caused Tiger Woods' crash a month ago, but they're not going to release the details because they want to keep that private for right now. Emerald, quickly, we don't have a ton of time, but shouldn't we have access to that information at some point here, like now?
See, I'm probably more conflicted on that. I saw a lot of people really upset about it. But look, they're saying, well, a private person, the police wouldn't do that, but there wouldn't be the news interest in a private person. Now, I respect people's privacy, whether they're a golf star or a regular person. So for me, I don't find it that problematic. But I'm also not an entertainment journalist.
Rick, about 10 seconds. He's a very public private person.
I think one thing you got to look at, the first thing that hit me was, remember Vanessa Bryant sued, the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department for leaking privacy information. And I think you're going to see this moving forward as a pattern. Law enforcement is going to be more protective of information so they don't get into legal jeopardy.
It's a very good point. Panel, we'll pick this back up at the top of the hour. Great conversation.